Oh my gosh. People here.
I'm going to quickly spot
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, I don't even know. Please. Oh.
Nobody.
You all set? All set? Good afternoon. I'm Matt Weintraub, Bucks County District Attorney. Thank you all for coming today. We have a number of announcements to make, but first, I know that many of you have been with us all week, and I just want to tell you, frankly, been wondering exactly how to start this off, but I guess I want to just tell you how I'm feeling. I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of many, many people. I feel a lot of sadness. I feel relief. I feel so proud of my team, and I feel resolve, because although we've sped through this week and we've accomplished so much, we have so much more to do to bring justice in this case. But I am very, very relieved to say that we've brought 4 young men one step closer to their loved ones, and so that they can rest in peace. Dean Finicaro, Tom Mayo, Mark Sturgis, and Jimmy Patrick have all been positively identified. We've notified all their loved ones in as peaceful and respectful way as possible that we now have them in a safe place so that they can soon be returned home. In addition, we're not here to make moral judgments on any of their actions, and I know many of you may have questions about that for me. We're here to accomplish 2 goals, and that was to bring these young men home to their loved ones who have done nothing wrong, have done nothing to deserve this horrible, unspeakable tragedy that has been beset upon them. And we're here to seek justice for them, and that is our commitment. As I stand here today, I have in my hand some paperwork that has now been officially filed of record, charging 2 men with the murder of those 4 young men that I just spoke about. Cosmo DiNardo has been charged with the murder of Mr. Finicaro, Mr. Mayo, Mr. Sturgis, and Mr. Patrick. Sean Kratz has been charged with the murders of Mr. Finicaro, Mr. Mayo, and Mr. Sturgis. They've also been charged with robbery, abuse of corpse, possession of instrument of crime, and conspiracy to commit all of those acts, with the exception of what has been done to Mr. Patrick. Cosmo DiNardo, we allege, is responsible for those actions alone. As you know, from what you've seen over the week, we did find 3 of those young men buried deep within the ground under an old oil tank that was converted into a cooker about 12 and a half feet down. And in the sweltering heat and the dust and the pouring down rain, many of the men that you see behind me and many of the men and women that they represent worked tirelessly, nonstop, selflessly, around the clock. We had to force them to leave when their shifts were over. They insisted that they be there every step of the way until these men could be painstakingly and carefully removed from that 12 and a half foot grave. And we were successful. After day after day after day of failure, we were successful. As a result of an agreement that I decided to make with Cosmo DiNardo, we were able to also secure Jimmy Patrick's body and bring him home as well. And I can tell you, for I've been there, we'd still be looking for Jimmy Patrick had we not made this agreement. I rode there in a car on the same site as the other 3 men were found. It was so far away that I started getting sick to my stomach on the ride. But we were able to find him exactly where we were told he was located and bring him home. In addition, we gained very, very valuable intelligence and information that we did not have and have now been able to corroborate, which will yet come to be proven in court, in a court of law, that enabled us to charge co-defendant Sean Kratz. And finally, we were able to secure the 2 weapons that we allege were used in these 4 murders so that they can never be used to hurt or kill anyone ever again. And our boys get to go home to their families, which was always our first priority. I told you I have a lot of pride for the team, and I have a long list, and because you're a captive audience, you're going to hear me read it. And I want to start out by first thanking our affiants who have spearheaded this investigation: Detective Martin McDonough, who works with me, Lieutenant David Kemmerer, Detective Corporal Jonathan Koretsky of Solebury Township Police, Chief Chris McAteer, Deputy Chief Michael Mosniak, and all of the rest of the Bucks County detectives. What an incredible team. Special Agent Jim Christie of the FBI, who's been boots on the ground almost since day one and has enabled us access to just amazing resources, some of which I can't even discuss with you and some of which I didn't even believe existed until this incredible task was set upon. Solebury Chief Dominic Belize, who has been my right-hand man almost every step of the way. Middletown Chief Joe Bartarilla, who was here on the night that we had to notify the Finnicaros and so caringly accompanied us and made sure that we did that in the best way possible. Newtown Chief Rick Pasqualini, who was also present, has been with us every step of the journey. Plumstead Township Sergeant Rich Frederick, who is here representing Dwayne Hockenauer, and all the men on his force as well, who have given us such great help and assistance. Pennsylvania State Police, and you see many of them arrayed before you. Giovanni DeSalvatore, Vladimir Chelak, Mark Fisher, Brad Furlong, some of whom were on that site working arm in arm with our other brothers and sisters in law enforcement. Philadelphia Police Department, and we have here Deputy Commissioner of Special Ops, Dennis Wilson, and certainly almost all of our favorites, the Philly PD K-9 unit. As you saw, those dogs also worked tirelessly in the heat to try to find these lost boys. The aviation unit, our eyes in the air, the Marine unit, Northeast detectives who helped us secure the arrest of Mr. Kratz, and so many others who helped from all of these departments on a volunteer basis. Bensalem PD, Quakertown PD, Buckingham PD, Warminster PD, Richland PD, Warwick PD, Dublin Borough PD, Central Bucks Crime Scene Unit, Doylestown Township PD, Bedminster PD, Montgomery County Detectives, Bucks County Sheriff's Department, the American Red Cross, the Goodwill Fire Company, Bucks County Emergency Services, the Plumstead Fire Company, the Monco Police Academy Cadets, multiple community donations, organizations, individuals, households, businesses, charitable organizations, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, you. Because it was with your help, your assistance to keep the call alive, to keep those tips coming, that enabled us to act so swiftly and certainly and bring this case to a rapid and just conclusion. I am so proud of the team. I am so proud of each and every one of you. When we asked for your help, you gave it. And I am so grateful to have been able to serve in this capacity, but our work is not done. But I will say this, and then I'll take some questions. It has been a pleasure to serve with you all. Thank you very much. I'll take some questions.
What makes him kill these people? Why does he want to shoot them?
Jeff, I don't know that. I'm not really sure if we could ever answer that question. Anybody else?
Do you know what the relationship between Kratz and Cosmo was?
I'm not sure. I think that it may be reflected in the probable cause affidavit, at least with respect to the relationship. You may see that in that document.
You spoke about the, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
You spoke about the drive. How far away was Jimmy Patrick's body discovered from the 3 men?
I'm going to estimate it was between a quarter and a half a mile. It was described to us as being up on the top of a mountain. And We found him. We found him where we were told we were going to find him, and I don't know if we would have ever.
And what was the condition? Was he also buried?
Yes. Yes, he was.
Was you expect to charge anyone else?
We've just charged the 2 men that I mentioned.
Was he on the farm? Jimmy Patrick? Was it on the farm?
He was on the 80-acre Soulberry farm that we have been searching on for days.
Your release does not mention that the bodies were burned in any way. Were they not burned?
I do not believe so. I'm not a forensic expert. I think if you read the probable cause affidavit, what you'll glean from it is that there was an attempt to burn the bodies, to deface them, to obliterate them, but I don't believe that that was successful.
The affidavit states that one of the guns belonged to Cosmo DiNardo's mother. Is there any indication if the parents knew, were involved, had any idea?
I can't comment on that at this time.
Police are going looking for surveillance video in Northeast Philadelphia. Can you comment as to why that might be?
I don't want to say specifically, but I can say generally a lot of our investigative work overnight was in trying to secure the co-defendant so that he could not remain at large.
Are you still looking for suspects, or do you believe you have your 2 men?
I'm satisfied at this time that based on the evidence that we have the 2 men locked up that need to be brought to justice. Of course, if there is more information out there that would suggest, and I am not suggesting this, but that would suggest that other people were involved, we're still open to consider that. But I'm not saying that that's the case. Deanna?
What do you know about the weapons, specifically the weapons recovered from Upper Dublin?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Do you know the background, who bought them?
I don't know that, so I can't answer your question.
Does his mother have any obligation under the law, though, to keep her pistol from being in the hands of her son, who she knew had no right to have it and had mental health issues?
As far as my understanding of the law goes, you do not have an affirmative obligation to prevent somebody from getting it. If they get it, that's on them if they're not permitted to have it.
Your belief is that had you not offered him the deal of no death penalty, you don't get Patrick's body?
We'd still be looking, I know that much. I can't predict the future, but that is what I believe.
What convinced him to confess to you, and how long did it go before he actually did it in a long meeting that you had?
I don't know what convinced him. I'd like to think that he wanted to help us get these boys home. I'll take one more question.
Were there other victims?
Do you think this could have been prevented if the earlier firearms charge hadn't been dismissed?
No, because he was at large on bail, I'm sad to say. Jim?
Was Reno's car the key to unlocking all of this? Is that what led you to that property?
I don't want to say because of investigative information that I know, but that I still can't share because this is ongoing. One more.
Can you share with us how the families are doing?
I hope that I'm never in their shoes, but if I ever were, I pray that I could handle this with the courage and the dignity that they've exhibited. I'm just in awe. And I don't know, I don't remember who these are from, but I understand that I'm to distribute these to as many of the first responding law enforcement officers that were out on that scene as I can, and I promise you that I will do that. Thank you all very much.
Without the agreement, would you have found Sean Katz? Correct.
All right, everyone, that is the end of that press conference there in Pennsylvania. These are the pictures of the 2 men charged with murder in the deaths of 4 young men who were killed last week. You have Cosmo DiNardo on the left, Sean Krantz on the right. Both are facing charges with multiple counts of homicides in the slaying of 4 young men on a sprawling Soulbury Township property owned by the parents of one of the suspects. Now, the 2 suspects are both 20 years old, and charges were announced against them in the deaths of the 4 men: Jimmy Taro Patrick, Dean Finocchiario, Thomas Mayo, and Mark Sturgis. Now, investigators are saying that all 4 men were shot. Cosmo DiNardo is accused of killing Patrick on July 5th, burying him in a single 6-foot grave on his parents' land in Solebury Township. Now, both DiNardo and Kratz are charged with the killings of the other 3 individuals, Finarcio, Mayo, and Sturgis, back on July 7th. Their bodies were later discovered in a 12-foot deep common grave in a different location on the same property. Each victim has now been positively identified, according to the Bucks County DA, who we just heard from. Now, according to the probable cause affidavit, DiNardo told investigators that he had agreed to sell Patrick 4 pounds of marijuana for $8,000. DiNardo said he picked up Patrick at Patrick's home and drove him to the DiNardo property. Once on the property, DiNardo says Patrick revealed he only had $800, so DiNardo offered to sell him a shotgun for that amount. They walked to a remote part of the property where DiNardo said he fatally shot Patrick with a .22 caliber rifle, according to the affidavit. Now, DiNardo then drove a backhoe that was on the property to where Patrick lay, dug a hole no more than 6 feet deep, and buried him. Patrick's body was discovered on the property late last night. Then, a couple of days later, DiNardo tells investigators he agreed to sell a quarter pound of marijuana to Finarcio for about $700. DiNardo first picked up Kratz, who he described to others as his cousin, and drove to Finarcio's home in Middletown, agreeing on the way that they would rob him. That, according to the affidavit. Now, DiNardo claims to have given Kratz a handgun that belonged to his mother, and then all 3 of them drove to the property. Police say that Kratz, this individual right here on the right, shot Finarcio in the head as they were leaving the barn on the site. DiNardo told investigators he then took the gun and shot Finarcio a second time as the victim lay on the ground. Again, this is DiNardo, this is Kratz. I do have pictures of the missing men as well. You have these individuals who were killed. The individual that was killed on the 5th was Jimmy Patrick. Then, the next one killed was Dean Finarcio, shot in the head first by Kratz, and then shot again by DiNardo. Now, later on July 7th, DiNardo says that he met both Sturgis and Mayo in a church parking lot. DiNardo told investigators he had a marijuana deal set up with Tom Mayo. These 2 individuals followed DiNardo to his property in Mayo's Nissan Maxima vehicle. Now, after parking at the residence, they rode with DiNardo in his truck to the property where Kratz was also waiting. DiNardo said he then ran over to Mayo with the backhoe. After the men exited the truck, DiNardo claims he shot Mayo in the back and then fired several times at Sturgis as he fled. DiNardo then ran over to Mayo with the backhoe before using it to lift both bodies into a metal tank where he had already placed Finarcio's corpse. This according to court records. Now, the following day, DiNardo told police that he and Kratz returned to the property where DiNardo used a backhoe to dig a deep hole and bury the tank containing the 3 bodies. So you have these 3 individuals that were buried in that tank. Patrick buried elsewhere on the property. Patrick killed on the 5th. These 3 individuals killed on the 7th. These are the 2 men that face murder charges, along with a slew of other charges, in the case of the 4 missing Bucks County men.